All right, we're back on Puck Time after just a little bit of difficulties. The good news is we started off just kind of jibber jabbering about the NHL for the first 10 minutes. So you guys didn't mix many picks, but we did get into the first game of the day, which was Panthers and Lightning. I like the road team, the Tampa Bay Lightning, in this matchup. Carm, I can't remember. I think you said you like a total, but I don't think you gave out your pick. What do you have for us?
Yeah, so apologies on that, Andrew. You spilled your Tim Hortons coffee all over um, the mixing board there. That's why we froze. But yeah, no. What I was saying with regards to these two teams is they're playing some shutdown defense right now. And I want to take the under the 5.5. You look at some of the score lines, and Tampa's just not allowing a lot of goals. I think 4 or 5 straight under the total. Montreal is the last team to score more than a couple of goals on them, where they scored 3 in a loss. And Florida's playing the same. The only thing that might keep me off of wanting to take the under in this game, Andrew, but it's the only play for me on this game, would be that these are two teams that don't like each other. They really don't like each other, and we see it on the ice. Florida's had Tampa Bay's number of late. It used to be the other way around. But if these teams get a little physical and they venture away from how they've been playing the last 4 or 5 games, the last 10 games, then we're going to see some penalties, and we're going to see these power plays on there. And I don't want to see the Tampa Bay power play on the ice. I don't want to see the Florida power play, even with Matthew Tkachuk not in the lineup on the ice, either power play, because goals are sure to follow. We're always going to get a few penalties, just not a lot of penalties. If this is a clean game and these teams play like the way they've played the last 10 plus games, this has to be an under. So that's where I'm leaning here, Andrew.
Hard to argue with Carm, especially an interdivision game like this one. Like you said, you're going to be just crossing your fingers. No power plays, no opportunities for these teams to go out there with a man advantage. Is what you'll be hoping for. But two great goaltenders and two goaltenders that I hope to see in the Olympics. Just simple hockey talk. No political thoughts here. I want to see the Russian players in the Olympics, and I think that I believe that Vasilevsky, Bobrovsky. Who am I forgetting here, Carm? Shesterkin, Sorokin. I mean, Russia has some of the best goaltenders in the whole league, and people are forgetting about them because we watched the Foreign Nations tournament not include Russia. But I think you have a pretty good chance with any under when you have two goaltenders like that with Bobrovsky and of course Vasilevsky. So two great goaltenders, Carm. And speaking of which, I've been telling people all season long that both these teams have relied on their goaltenders. Let's move forward to the Capitals and the Senators. And you talked about it, the capital of each of their individual countries. And now going head to head, two teams in a little bit of different spots, we'll argue. But when I look at this Capitals team, they're going to be just fine. They're just going through it a little bit, couple losses in a row for them now. But Ottawa's the big story here. When we were having our technical difficulties, I read a quote from Martin St. Louis about the game tonight for the Habs against Buffalo. He said, "Our playoffs start tonight. Playoffs aren't in 4 weeks, 5 weeks. Our playoffs start today." And I believe that's the same thing for Ottawa against the Washington Capitals, Carm. Their playoffs start today, except for their playoffs are against 10 different teams, 15 different teams over the next couple weeks, because they were sitting comfortably in a wild card spot for a while. Like I mentioned earlier, they were third in the division for about 4 or 5 days at one point. And they start, dealing with injuries, and they start relying on their goaltending, and they start playing some pretty good hockey teams, and they struggled. The funny thing is, their schedule is only about middle of the pack right now as far as strength of schedule moving forwards. I'll tell you what, I feel for Ottawa for the fact that they're getting Washington's best. They're getting a pissed off Washington team here in this one. This is a spot here where if I'm looking at this game overall and I'm looking at two goaltenders that I've kind of said the teams have relied upon, typically I would look towards the over here. But I've talked about some of these magic numbers, like these perfect money line side prices that have worked well for me with team totals, Carm. Minus 150 ballpark range has been just the perfect spot for my team totals. And I'm seeing plus 125 on the Washington Capitals to get to 4 goals. We got 5.5 as the total, minus 120 to the over. Favored slightly to get to 6 here. If it gets to 6, one team's getting to 4, and I think that team would be the Washington Capitals. Team total over 3.5 goals, plus 125 is a great price. I think this game, no matter who wins, sees some goals. A bit different than the previous game between Tampa and Florida. What do you think?
Andrew, I'm right with you. So, I talked at the start of the show about Washington 3 straight games and whether it is regression or not. I don't think it's regression. I think all good teams, and they are a good team. They have a 10-point buffer on Carolina. I think 12 on New Jersey in that Metro division. But you look at the 3 games that they have lost since the restart. They started with a win, a couple wins over Pittsburgh Penguins and the Edmonton Oilers, scoring 15 goals in those games, and then 3 games in which they scored 4 goals combined. But you got to look a step further. One of the losses was at the St. Louis Blues, and the Blues were in the midst of a 5-0-1 run, playing some very good hockey, picking up 11 a possible 12 points before they had to play. I think it was the second of a back-to-back in Dallas, which they end up losing. They play the Flames. They lost to the Flames. The Flames, 6 straight unders, playing some good defense, and their goaltending is standing on its head. Vidar, especially, he's looked good on this road trip. And then Tampa Bay, 8-0-1. They were heading into that game, having allowed only 15 goals across 9 games. So when you're playing very good shutdown teams that are playing some very good defense or in the midst of a very good run themselves, sometimes you're going to end up on the wrong end of the stick, and that's where Washington did. The line moved from 160 down to 145. I'm not entirely sure that's the right move here. I think Washington is the right play here. You look at Ottawa. Where does Ottawa fit in? Andrew, sure, they beat the Sharks 5-3 last time out, but prior to that, they had allowed 23 goals in 5 games. Linus Ullmark's back in goal. We'll see how he does. I think Ullmark and Logan Thompson are confirmed for tonight. I still think, much like you said, we see some goals in this one, but Washington's the right play for me. I'm not jumping off the boat because they lost 3 games. Give me the Washington Capitals tonight, minus 145. Any thoughts before you head into your prop playlist?
No, I think, look, we're not saying anything bad against Ottawa. I think we're more so just talking up Washington. I agree with what you're saying there. I think it's a good spot. And as you mentioned, it's different when a team loses a game to a bad team or a non-playoff team or a team that's not playing well versus when a team loses to a team that's been hot. And that's the thing. When I look at some of these Washington losses that they've gone through, a lot of times when they lose games, they make other teams beat them. They don't beat themselves. And I know that sounds cliche, and people say that kind of stuff, as excuses for their team losing, sort of. But I think that when you look at this Capitals team, anytime they lose, it's not like an easy loss or a easy win for their opponent. It's typically the opposite. They make people work hard to beat them. So this should be a really good game. And I know it sounds funny because I keep saying this, and I said it to Prez on WagerTalk today on Friday. It seems to me, Carm, these smaller slates, Mondays, Wednesdays, Fridays, have been some really good cards, man. Like, we're getting some good games. And I know it's a funny thing to notice, but typically people talk about the Thursdays and the Tuesdays and the Saturdays. But the fact that we're getting, Ottawa and Washington with 2 teams, fighting for each game. And then, of course, Florida and Tampa Bay. And our next one is a pretty good one as well to get to. So you got to love that. And hopefully we get some good games, but more importantly, hopefully you and I get some winners tonight. So I've got some props to get to. Before I get to them, first of all, I'll thank you guys that joined me on Friday with that promo code I had for my full NHL season. That promo code, of course, being HatTrick5. We have extended that. That is still available. Hat Trick 5 will get you guys my full entire NHL season plus playoffs for $2.99. Hat Trick 5, the promo code, guys. You're going to get sides, totals, props, team totals, futures, every single play I release. The 5% have been absolutely money. You're going to get all my 5% plays I release for the whole entire season. And $2.99 is the price. So obviously closer to playoff time, we're going to have playoff specials. We're going to have playoff plus other sports specials. The best thing to do is to get involved right now, early on in the month, and join me over at WagerTalk with that promo code HatTrick5, $2.99 for the full season. The first prop I'm going to look at, Carmen, I just have two. They're both shots on goal props. There's going to be Brady Tkachuk over 3.5 shots on goal, minus 115 for the Ottawa Senators against the Capitals. We just spent a handful of minutes talking about the matchup for the Senators versus the Washington Capitals. And the fact is, sometimes your best players just have to be your best players. Sometimes your guys have to be your guys. We talked about how some of these games are playoff games already for teams like Ottawa. This sure should feel like a playoff game for the Ottawa Senators. Every game for them is them trying to make the postseason, clock in that last spot of the wild card. Tkachuk has gone over 3.5 shots on goal in 4 straight games. You got to think the confidence that he got from playing in that Four Nations tournament. Some might argue he was one of the best players on that Team USA roster on the Four Nations tournament. So I'm very impressed with what I saw. And I think that he's certainly somebody we should be betting on. And I'm going to look at one more shots on goal prop, and it's going to be Juraj Slafkovsky over 1.5 for the Montreal Canadiens. Carm, I know I've talked about this guy a handful of times on PuckTime over the last few months. The fact is he has looked like a little bit of a different player since the Four Nations break. He came back with some confidence. Unfortunately for athletes, it's not all about the play on the ice. It's very mental. Your confidence is a big thing, and his confidence since coming back from the break has been extremely high. A lot more forechecking, a lot harder hits, and just being a lot more involved in the play. He went over this number against Ottawa. He went over this number against Carolina, San Jose, and in the last meeting on Saturday night against Buffalo. And again, all we need is just 2 shots on goal. Feeling great about these guys. We got 2 player props. And again, that promo code you guys can get over at wagertalk.com. So, Carm, I think that player props right now, we're kind of getting into that point of the year. People that are betting on player props, that you're probably okay to be betting on the star players. You know, if it's like the middle of December, kind of like the dry time of the year, that's when kind of like the no-name guys start to score, right? I mean, the guys that, you don't really expect to. If you're betting player props, it can kind of throw you off a little bit. But right now, your best players are your best players. And I think that you and I would be remiss not to mention Jack Hughes going down yesterday for the New Jersey Devils in the Metropolitan Division. Some are speculating he could be out for the year. Some are speculating it could be a few months. When it comes down to it, he is the heart and soul of that team. And I think right now your leaders step up the most in this time of the season. I saw people tweeting out bets immediately after the injury for the Devils to miss the playoffs. That's how much people think that the Devils value a player like Jack Hughes and rely on a player like Jack Hughes. But certainly a time of the year where the big players step up, and obviously a big loss there for the Devils.
No, it certainly is, and you don't want to see it happen. But if it was going to happen, I guess it's good that it happened before the trade deadline, so they can make moves if the cap allows them to, or if what they've stockpiled as far as like any draft picks allows them to, because there's teams that will be part of like a 3-player team deal, like Chicago has done, where they'll and San Jose has done, where they'll eat up a part of a player's salary in order to get those draft picks. So we'll see what happens with New Jersey, because they're one of the teams that at full strength and with better goaltending this year than they had last year, they have a shot at making a run in the playoffs, but they need everybody there. They're a team that needs every single person in that lineup. They can't have anybody on LTIR or injured and missing games. Andrew, in your prop segment, you talked about unlikely players scoring. Well, Eli Sorokin scored a goal. He did not know he scored a goal. I'm not sure if he knew that. It literally deflected off of him last before it went into the net the other way. So he is credited with the goal. So he's only one goal behind Rempe of the New York Rangers, who they play tonight, as far as goals scored in the season. But it should be Sorokin, should be Shesterkin in goal, minus 115. The Rangers have owned them at the Garden at least the last 3 games. 5 if you look at the standing. 5 if you look at the last 10 games that they played against each other, but 2 of those were preseason; those don't count. But this season, 5-1 and 5-2, 5.34 xG created in that 5-1 game, 7.93 xG created in that 5-2 game. But I'm leaning Islanders here. 6-3 their last 9 on the road, Andrew, and losses to Florida, Winnipeg, and then Minnesota on the second of a back-to-back were their only 3 losses. They're playing better hockey on the road than I expected this team to play. And having lost that game to the Rangers just a little while back, I think they flipped the script here. It's always tough to win in New York against the Rangers, but I'm not welcoming the Rangers as back to their early season form just yet. I need to see more wins from them. I'm taking the Isles here, Andrew, minus 105 on this one. I'm going to throw something out. Last 5 games, their last 5 losses, every game has gone over the total for the Islanders. Their last 5 wins, 4 or 5 have gone under the total. So we know just that Nashville game, 7-4, was the only game that stayed, that went over the total in their last 5 wins. They got to play D in order to win games. So I'm hoping they do that tonight. So give me the Isles. What about you?
You know what I love, Carm, with these type of matchups when it's like the Islanders and Rangers, or it'd be like the Lightning and the Panthers. A lot of times, you look at these teams and their last 2 games, or the last game for each team was against the exact same team. So both teams were able to gain confidence against the Nashville Predators. One team can sit back and say, man, we scored 7 goals against our previous opponent. The other team can say, well, our opponent didn't even score any goals. We shut them out 4-0. So which one do you think is better? The Islanders win where they scored 7 goals, or the Rangers win where they didn't give up any goals? You can make up your mind at home, but anytime the Islanders score 7 goals, I'm pretty impressed by that. I think it's pretty, it kind of shocks me to see that. Having said that, I'm going to do a big 360 and completely go against the grain on some of these goals we've seen recently from these 2 teams. Oftentimes we talk about over in the first period, over 1.5s in the first period. We don't talk enough about unders in the first period. And a lot of times it can be empty net goals and different late goals that can screw you if you have an under full game 5.5. But if you have the first period under 1.5, which is minus 105 right now, I think whichever team gets the lead, if a team does get the lead early on in the first period, they sit back and play defensive. The way the New York Islanders played, and to your point, Carm, defense favors them. I think offense could favor the Rangers, despite the past 2 scores for each team. If they'll protect that lead, I'll be impressed, and I'll be happy with my under 1.5 in the first period. I think both teams realize defense is the key for this one here. I can't see this game overall having a ton of goals. I do lean towards the full game under as well. But the first period under, I'm always giving out full game, first period overs, guys. I think this game has a very, very tight playoff style feel to it. I'm going to go under 1.5 goals, first period minus 105. Both teams coming off exciting games against the Nashville Predators. Well, this game should have that rivalry feel to it to hopefully have a low scoring start. I'll tell you what, Carmen, it's not really as fun taking first period under. It's kind of like taking an over in a UFC fight. Like, you got to cheer against somebody getting knocked out. You got to watch the first period and hope that nobody scores. Not very fun doing that. But as Andy Lang will always tell us, the fun bets aren't always the ones that win. And we need to go against the grain sometimes. So under 1.5 first period, Isles and Rangers for me.
Andrew, unders are difficult to watch. If I have like a soccer under, I don't even watch it. I know when the game starts, and I literally will check in every 30 minutes or so. I'll check the app, hope to see 0-0, check the halftime score, and then I'll check the score about 10 minutes till the end of the game to see if I need to turn it on and sweat it. But it's tough, especially first periods are tough. It seems if I take a first period under, there is a goal 17 seconds into the game, and it just you're like, are you shitting me on this? Sometimes the goals come and you don't expect them there. Which I'm just going to comment on this one before we get to the free plays real quickly. But Andrew, the Sabres and the Canadiens play. The Sabres and the Canadiens played tonight. The Sabres goaltending in all three games against Montreal, all three losses, has been absolutely abysmal. 7-5, Montreal wins the first game. 7 goals on 3.19 xG generated. Then they win 6-1. They generated only 3.27 xG. And then 4-2 Montreal win last time out for both these teams. So this is the second of a back-to-back. 2.45 xG created. They're taking their opportunities and putting it into the net, whether it's empty net goals or not, and finding a way to win. But with that said, I don't think the Sabres are going to get swept by the Montreal Canadiens this season. So that's what I'm taking as the show best bet. I'm taking the Buffalo Sabres to bounce back off of a couple of losses. That one against Montreal was about as close as you can get, at least from an analytics point of view. The Sabres were 3.8 to 2.45 xG. They held the advantage. It should have been 4-2 the other way, but unfortunately it was not. You got to win the game on the ice. I'm taking the Sabres minus 110 tonight to against Andrew's Montreal Canadiens, who are the playoffs start tonight for them, apparently. One play up for me tonight. It is a 4% best bet. Last couple 4% plays cashed very easily this past week. We'll see if we can make it 3 in a row. You can get that up at WagerTalk. And my Champions League and Europa League cards will be up shortly as well, too. I've got a big play coming up. So pick up that 3 or 7 day all access and take advantage of the next 7 days. It's going to be a busy and big one for me.
Good luck, Carm. Besides on your Sabres pick, good luck on everything else you do in life. Besides when you bet against the Canadiens, you know how it is. But always cheering for you. But that should be a good one. And again, all kinds of great games tonight. Like guys, I've mentioned it quite a bit here, but that promo code for me, HATTRICK5, is the best one. We talk about long term. Really trying to pick my spots this year in the NHL. That's been the thing for me. Trying to pick my spots. Sure, there's been some nights where I could have released 5 or 6 plays, and it would have been a great night, but it very well could go the opposite. So picking my spots, low volume, kind of selecting those best bets have been really profitable for me. Number one, with 4% and 5% plays combined at the websites this year. We're ditching those small plays, all right, guys? You join me with that promo code HATTRICK5. You're going to get all my best bets, 5% plays, and my future bets as well at WagerTalk. My best bet for the show is going to be first period over, Hawks and Kings. All right, the LA Kings are off 3 losses in a row against pretty good teams. What better time to take out your anger than when you get to play a team like the Blackhawks, and the Blackhawks are off a win over the Anaheim Ducks. Funny enough, they win that game 6-3, 0 goals in the first period. Chicago at home, Carms talked about it, first period over for Chicago has been a very good bet recently. We'll take that at a pretty good price of minus 130. All right, guys, thanks for bearing with us here today here on PuckTime. 2 editions, 2 episodes, 2 versions on the YouTube channel. Hope you guys enjoyed. Best of luck. We'll see you tomorrow right here on PuckTime.